Hello and welcome to Business Associate Training. Today we're going to be going over the HIPAA Security Rule and what you need to know as a business associate. Nothing you're going to hear today should be considered legal advice. We are not attorneys. However, this is coming directly from the recommendations of the Office for Civil Rights, the Office of the Inspector General, CMS, and other agencies involved with enforcing HIPAA and related rules. Today, we want to help you build a culture of compliance in your organization. When it comes to protecting health information, the government's getting involved. Agencies such as Health and Human Services and all their related agencies, and the newest, the Federal Trade Commission, using their Unfair Trade Practices Act for organizations that do not properly protect patient information. Under HIPAA, every organization that is covered must have a HIPAA privacy officer and HIPAA security officer. Most organizations combine that to be just the HIPAA compliance officer. Make sure you know who your HIPAA compliance officer is or who you would report to for any HIPAA concerns. As a business associate, you need to be aware of a new law called information blocking. Any interference, anything that is likely to interfere with the access, exchange, or use of electronic health information is prohibited by law. That means that if you have patient information to a covered entity, even if there's a contractual dispute, you cannot withhold that information. Under HIPAA, we protect what is called PHI, Protected Health Information. It's an identifier matched with any payment, treatment, or healthcare operations information. Under HIPAA, these are the 18 identifiers. So everything from your name to your medical record number, your social security number, and also take note of number 18, any other unique identifying numbers, characteristics, or codes. I'm often told, well, we didn't disclose PHI because we only disclosed a code with the person's information and nobody knows that code except us. That is an identifier, and therefore you would have PHI in that circumstance. So again, HIPAA is protecting TP&O, treatment, payment, and healthcare operations. So not just their medical information or medical condition, but also any payment information on that patient is considered part of the HIPAA protected information. As a business associate, many times you are only actually dealing with ePHI, or electronic protected health information. Electronic protected health information is all the digital PHI that you may have access to or hold for the covered entity. HIPAA carries penalties. Not only your organization, but you yourself can be fined under HIPAA. So make sure that you watch and understand this training so that you and your organization are not in willful neglect. The key component or the heart of HIPAA is the minimum necessary standard. It is a key protection, and it basically states that you can only use, access the information you need for your particular purpose. Snooping is a major HIPAA violation. Going into your own chart or family and friends charts is also serious. So just because you may have access doesn't give you the right to access. So to apply the minimum necessary standard, when you are able to use dummy data or dummy accounts rather than live actual patient information, you always should. That's not always the case where you can, but when you can, always use dummy data. Again, you can be terminated for accessing your own family or friends' medical records without authorization from the HIPAA compliance officer, and you should only be reviewing the minimum necessary information for the job requirements that you have. As a business associate, most of the privacy rule does not apply to you. These are the patient's rights, but I want to go over them quickly. Patients have a right to access all the medical records held on them. They have a right to request that those records are amended. They have the right to confidential communications. They have a right to an accounting of disclosures of where their information's been sent. They also can ask you to restrict the information. And you should always, as the HIPAA compliance officer, make sure that you have the covered entities that you're working with notice of privacy practices to see if there's additional restrictions that you have. Extremely rare, but something you need to know about, is what is called the accounting of disclosures. This allows patients to go directly to you as a business associate and ask you, where have my records been sent that fall outside of treatment, payment, or healthcare operations? Again, it would be very rare for that to happen, but a breach would be one of those conditions. Another condition would be a court subpoena. So make sure it's documented somewhere so that we have that information if requested. As a business associate, you may have what we call downstream subcontractors, someone that your organization hires to review or help you with the work that you're doing for the covered entity. They must also be covered under HIPAA. Make sure your HIPAA compliance officer is aware of anyone you are using that could access the client's network or patient information to let them know that they need a subcontractor agreement in place. Business associate agreements are required to be in place before you work with a covered entity or a subcontractor. So make sure, again, that your HIPAA compliance officer is aware, because any violation of that is considered an impermissible disclosure, a breach that has to be reported to the covered entity. When it comes to HIPAA security, it's all about risk management, making sure that we have put into place a system to review our security controls and training for our staff. HIPAA has a lot of security requirements that we must review and address. And again, they must be documented. So make sure you are aware of the policies and procedures within your organization so that you can comply with HIPAA. Now, HIPAA does not require perfect security. It doesn't exist. However, we must look for known vulnerabilities and apply reasonable and appropriate safeguards. We'll go over these now. So a little healthy paranoia is always a good thing when it comes to cybersecurity. You need to aggressively protect the patient information or the networks that information resides on. And reasonable and appropriate security measures that we have in place are things such as firewalls, commercial grade antivirus protection, our policies and procedures, the use of complex passwords, awareness training, especially on phishing emails, and other restrictions on remote access and what security we need on our computers. Anywhere and everywhere we can use encryption, we should. Encryption is a safe harbor for HIPAA. We'll talk a little bit more about how you can employ encryption to better protect yourself and your clients. Wi-Fi security is a critical component for maintaining the privacy of patient records. So when you are working from home, make sure you are on a password protected network. When you are out of the office, you should be using a cellular connection to connect. The free Wi-Fi from Starbucks, McDonald's, or even hotels is not secure enough for you to be accessing networks with patient information on them. So again, if you are working remotely from home or another location, make sure that you are following your policies and procedures. It is most likely against policy to download any files to your computer without permission. Your job may require it. Make sure we have an encrypted computer. You should always restart your computer after each work session. All of the information you accessed could be held in your RAM until you restart that device. Make sure that if you are in a public area or even at home, that others are not able to access or see your screen. You should always be using commercial grade antivirus, not just using Windows Defender. Other antiviruses that are readily available all have much more protection. Make sure that you are constantly updating your operating system to make sure that you are using the latest security features, and also you should be using the professional versions of Windows, either Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Pro, to make sure that you have, again, advanced security on your computer. If you are using Windows 10 or 11 Pro, you should also be encrypting your computer with BitLocker or another form of encryption. Make sure you get with your office manager or supervisor to make sure what protections are required based on your policies and procedures. Mobile devices also must be secured under HIPAA. You should read and sign your organization's mobile device security policy to make sure that you have on the proper protections, such as 6-digit or biometric access to that device, that you are also making sure that you have the capability to remotely wipe that device, and that no patient information is stored on that device as well. Under HIPAA, system activity reviews must take place and be documented by the HIPAA compliance officer. So do understand, your access to any systems with PHI is recorded, monitored, and reviewed. So understand, again, that you may be asked questions on the access that you did based on these required HIPAA reports. 92% of all PHI that is compromised is done so through phishing attacks. So training and awareness are key when it comes to security. And so we're going to go over some of the things to look for to make sure that you are complying with the HIPAA Security Rule. So your HIPAA training really needs to go over what are social engineering deception methods. Well, authority. If you receive an email from a superior, you're likely to respond to it. Liking. If you like the person, you're easily and more persuaded by them. Reciprocity. If I give you something, you tend to want to give me something back. Think about it. If I give you a compliment, the first thing that comes to your mind is to give me a compliment back. Validation. If I see other people doing something, I tend to go along with it. And scarcity. If something, limited value, limited time only, or even a sense of urgency, those are all common social engineering tactics that you need to be aware of and look for. So phishing is the favorite form of social engineering. Why? Because it's cheap. They estimate that about 3.4 billion phishing emails go out every day. And they're getting better. Less spelling errors, less grammatical errors. And they really like taking advantage of epidemics and health scares, economic concerns, maybe IRS scams, holidays. Don't you want to help the war victims? These are all common forms of phishing emails that you need to be on the lookout for. So here's a sample phishing email coming from Bank of America Business, but I look in the return email address and I see grouppharma@grouppharma.com.ec. Well, from past experience, I know that when I receive something from Bank of America, it comes from bankofamerica.com. And another clue here is that after the .com are the two letters EC. This is a country code. This means this is being redirected to Ecuador. So by looking at the actual return email address, the one in parentheses, I immediately notice that even though there's a sense of urgency on this email, my account's been suspended. I need to check what this PDF is to find out how to get it reactivated. No, I know that this is not an email that I should pay any more attention to. So here's a good reason not to be multitasking or going too fast through your emails. Because if I look real quickly, I see notifications too at Verizon.com. Well, that's actually a bad email address because Verizon is at Verizon.net. But again, let's look at the email in parentheses, ventas@gasq.com.mx. Well, that's not Verizon.net, and it's also going to .mx, which means it's being redirected to Mexico. Here, they're trying to get me to click on a link that's going to take me to a bad website. You should always, before you click on any link, hover over it and see where it's actually sending you to. So when it comes to email, slow down. Think before you click. Here, urgent notification that my emails are being stopped until I address this. But again, looking at that return email address, It's not coming from my email provider. So again, I don't need to go for any further with this email. Passwords are critical to your security, not only for logging into your computer, but one of the main cybersecurity targets is email. Why? Think about it. Email gives you a lot of information on that person, gives you their entire contact list, maybe even their calendar. And when you forget your password and you click reset password, where does that link go? Well, it goes to your email. So once I have control of your email account, I'm able to get into all of your accounts. So the new standard, according to CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, is now 15 characters, upper and lowercase letters, 2 numbers, and a symbol. Why? Well, let's look at the chart on the right. And now, with sophisticated equipment, cyber criminals can get and break an 8-character complex password in 1 second. So understand the importance of passwords, only using passwords separately for work compared to home. Don't cross those passwords, and understand that you are always under attack. And when you save your passwords, do not save them in browsers. Keep them secure if you write them down. But again, passwords are critically important in cybersecurity. It is the number 2 way that networks get compromised. A great site to go to see if your password has been compromised is a site called Have I Been Pwned. It's recommended by security experts worldwide, and it's a great way to find out if your email and password have been compromised, and also to find out if the passwords you're using are already on the dark web and already incorporated into a dictionary attack. When possible, use multi-factor authorization, where you have something you know, your password, and something you have, it sends a code or text to your phone. So with HIPAA, breaches are something that must be reported. So what is a breach? Under HIPAA, a breach is any access of patient information by anyone who does not need that access. So even sending patient information to the wrong covered entity. So we've got 3 covered entities we work with. We send patient information to the wrong entity. That is a breach. We send information by accident. We attach something to an email that goes to the bank. That is a breach. Those must all be reported to our HIPAA compliance officer. No matter how small you think it must be reported. Even if you are not sure if a breach occurred, but you think that there may have been one, HIPAA says any breach that is presumed is an actual breach until we go through a breach assessment process. So again, even a suspected breach is an actual breach, and no matter how small it is, or if you think you corrected it, it must still be reported. Breaches are the only thing that the covered entity has to report to the Office for Civil Rights at the end of the year. Year after year, it becomes very suspicious if you have not reported any breaches. So it's actually a bad thing not to have any that are reportable. I don't want you to go making any up, but again, no matter how small or even if it's only suspected, I do want to encourage you to report it to your HIPAA compliance officer. So some of the most common breaches are misdirected communications, emails sent to the wrong addresses, and also a glitch in the software that incorrectly puts list of patients and information in the wrong client's folder. And of course, employee snooping and improper disposal if you have paper copies that have patient information on them. Now, not all breaches are going to be considered a reportable breach. In the office, we have incidental use and disclosure. So if somebody walks by, another employee walks by and sees patient information and they're not involved with that, Well, it's incident to a proper disclosure. You are reviewing that account, and so that's not a reportable breach. Uh, Otherwise, again, anything you suspect, it must be documented and reported to your HIPAA compliance officer. Under HIPAA, there is a new Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency reporting requirement. So any malware, spyware, or any other intrusion into the network, again, needs to be reported immediately to the HIPAA compliance officer so that they can report it to this government agency. Now, we've talked an awful lot about HIPAA today, but documentation is the key. Again, breach reports, anything else that comes up, accounting of disclosures, make sure you document it. HIPAA has a 6-year requirement. So again, building that culture of compliance. Remember that your HIPAA compliance officer will be reviewing your access to patient information. Sanctions are a part of HIPAA, and you could receive a verbal or written sanction if you violate any of the practices or organization's policies and procedures. And that ongoing training is always required. So today's training is just the beginning, but you do need to make sure that you stay up on cybersecurity and the latest threats that could affect your organization. I want to thank you for your time and attention today. Uh, my name is Michael McCoy. Here's my contact information. We always ask that you go through your HIPAA compliance officer, but if you have an immediate need that we can help you with, please do not hesitate to reach out and contact us. Thank you for your time. We look forward to talking to you in the future.